Adam had been traveling through the desolate desert landscape of the alien planet for hours. The sun beat down relentlessly, casting long shadows on the cracked, dusty earth beneath his boots. The air smelled strange, filled with the faint scent of sulfur and something else he couldn't quite place. This place was like nothing he had ever seen before. It was not just a foreign planet, it felt otherworldly, alien in every way. He had been on this journey to explore a long-forgotten relic that was said to be hidden deep in the heart of this barren desert. But as he moved forward, he began to notice something odd, an eerie silence, unlike anything he had ever experienced. There were no sounds of creatures, no whispers of the wind, just absolute stillness. It was unsettling, but Adam pressed on. His mission had always been clear: to uncover the mysteries of the unknown. As he rounded a sharp bend in the rock-strewn path, something caught his eye. At first, he thought it was just another mirage, but as he drew closer, the figure became clearer. A young girl lying motionless on the ground. She seemed to be alone, her body curled slightly as though in pain. Adam's heart raced. He had been in isolated places before, but this was different. The girl wasn't just a traveler, and she wasn't human. Her skin was an unusual shade of purple, glowing faintly under the harsh sun. Her features were delicate yet strange, with large almond-shaped eyes that seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly light. There were no signs of anyone else around her. She was alone, yet something about her presence screamed urgency. Adam hesitated for a moment. He wasn't sure what to do. Should he approach her? Was this some kind of trap? But he couldn't leave her here, not like this. His curiosity and the feeling of responsibility tugging at him overcame his doubts. He moved closer, each step cautious, his eyes scanning the surroundings. There was no sign of danger, no movement, no sounds, just the girl, seemingly in pain. As he knelt beside her, he noticed something strange. More crab-like creatures were scuttling around her. They didn't seem aggressive at first, more like they were observing her, crawling around her legs and arms. The girl, barely able to move, lifted her head and turned toward Adam, her eyes filled with a mix of desperation and fear. She opened her mouth to speak, but her voice was weak, almost a whisper. "Human, it's itching badly. You must inspect me," she said, her voice strained, the words barely audible. Adam froze. "Inspect you? What's wrong?" he asked, confused and taken aback by her sudden request. His mind raced with questions. Who was she? What was she doing here? And why was she asking him, a complete stranger, for help? The girl managed to sit up slightly, though her body trembled with weakness. The crabs, now more active, seemed to crawl closer to her wounds. Adam could see that something was seriously wrong. Her skin had several glowing, pulsating marks on it, like burns or welts, but they were far too unnatural to be the result of anything ordinary. He glanced at the crabs, and it hit him: these creatures must be the cause of her pain. The crabs, the girl gasped, her voice shaky. They are feeding on me. They've poisoned me. You have to help. It's the only way to survive. Adam didn't fully understand, but he knew he couldn't leave her. His mind raced, wondering what kind of alien creature she could be, and why these strange crabs seemed to be drawn to her. Her plea for help was genuine, and the urgency in her voice pulled him in deeper. The crabs began to crawl over her body more aggressively, and the alien girl winced in pain. Adam couldn't waste any more time. He quickly reached out, touching the glowing marks on her skin. The warmth of her body, combined with the strange energy radiating from the wounds, sent a shiver down his spine. He could feel the intense heat of the welts, but the more he touched them, the more he realized this wasn't a simple injury. This was something far beyond his comprehension. "What are these?" Adam muttered, his voice full of awe and confusion. The girl's eyes fluttered as she fought to remain conscious. "My people, we created the crabs, but they turned on us." Her voice was barely a whisper now. They are drawn to me, to us. Our power, our essence, they feed on it. They will destroy everything." Adam's heart skipped a beat. His mind couldn't process the enormity of what she had just said. These crabs weren't just mindless creatures, they were connected to her people. He needed answers, but there was no time. The crabs were closing in, and the girl was fading fast. He had to do something. Without thinking, Adam tore off a piece of his shirt and pressed it to one of the girl's wounds. The alien girl looked up at him, eyes filled with a mix of fear and hope. You can help me. Only you can stop them," she whispered weakly. Before slipping into unconsciousness, Adam stared down at her, holding her fragile form in his arms. The crabs continued to scurry around, but they seemed to be waiting, almost watching. He realized that the girl's words had more weight than he could understand. This was no ordinary encounter, this was a moment that could change everything. Whatever had brought this alien girl here, and whatever she was running from, was bigger than any mystery he had ever faced, and now, he was part of it. With no choice left, Adam decided he would do whatever it took to save her. But as he looked around the barren desert, he realized one thing: he wasn't just helping this girl. He was about to become entangled in a war that stretched far beyond this planet, and the stakes were much higher than either of them could ever imagine. Adam's hands trembled as he carefully examined the alien girl's injuries. The strange glowing marks on her skin pulsed in time with her shallow breaths. He had never encountered anything like this before. Nothing in his years of training and exploration had prepared him for an encounter with something so far beyond human understanding. The crabs were still circling, but they didn't seem to be interested in him. Their focus was entirely on the alien girl. She lay unconscious in his arms, her body weak and fragile. Adam's mind raced, trying to make sense of everything she had said in her delirium. Her people had created these creatures, and now they were hunting her down. What did that even mean? And why was she the only one left? His thoughts were interrupted by a low, unsettling sound. He looked up to see the crabs moving again, slowly but steadily, as if they were preparing for something. The air felt charged, thick with tension. Adam knew they couldn't stay here. If the crabs sensed weakness, they would swarm. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. He needed to act fast. Adam gently lifted the alien girl, cradling her in his arms. Despite her small frame, she felt heavier than she looked, and he could feel the energy draining from her with each passing moment. The glow in her skin was fading, and the wounds seemed to be growing deeper. Her breathing grew more erratic, and Adam could feel panic rising within him. He needed shelter, he needed answers, and most of all, he needed time. The landscape around them was barren, and there was no sign of any civilization, no place to hide. His only option was to move forward. He started walking, each step a struggle as he carried the girl through the uneven terrain. The crabs, still following at a distance, seemed to be waiting for something. Every now and then, Adam could hear the skittering of their legs on the dry ground, the sound sending chills down his spine. As they walked, Adam's thoughts returned to the girl's words. She had mentioned that her people created the crabs. He couldn't fathom what kind of race could create such deadly creatures, only for them to turn on their creators. But then, she had said something else, something that stuck with him. Our power, our essence. Her words echoed in his mind. Was it possible that these crabs weren't just mindless predators, but were hunting her because of something within her, something that was connected to her very being? The thought sent a shiver through him. He had to know more. Eventually, Adam reached a small outcrop of rocks, the only shelter he had seen for miles. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. He gently laid the girl down on the ground, her head resting against a smooth stone. Her skin had grown paler, and her breathing was shallow, each exhale more labored than the last. The crabs were still watching from a distance, waiting patiently. It was almost as if they knew something. He did. Adam took a deep breath and tried to steady himself. He couldn't panic now. The alien girl needed him. He couldn't let her down. He looked around the area, searching for anything that could help. He saw nothing but the barren landscape stretching out in every direction. But then, something caught his eye. A strange, shimmering light in the distance, flickering like a beacon. It was faint, but it was enough to grab his attention. Without hesitation, Adam picked up the girl once again and began moving toward the light. The crabs followed, keeping their distance but never letting them out of sight. As Adam walked, couldn't help but wonder what he was getting himself into. The girl had mentioned something about an ancient war between her people and the crabs, but what did that mean for him? Was he simply caught in the middle of a battle he didn't understand, or was there something more, something that tied him to this strange conflict? The shimmering light grew brighter as Adam drew closer, and soon, he found himself standing before a massive structure, an ancient, crumbling building, half buried in the sand. It looked like it had been there for centuries, maybe even longer. There were no doors, no windows, just an imposing stone structure that seemed to stretch endlessly into the sky. The air around it hummed with an energy that made the hairs on the back of Adam's neck stand up. This was it. The answers he needed were inside. As Adam stepped closer, he felt a strange pressure in the air, as if something was watching him. The crabs had stopped following. Their movement halted, as if they were waiting for something. But what? Adam had no time to waste. He stepped through the archway of the structure, his mind filled with questions. What had brought him here? What was this place? And why had the crabs stopped following? Were they afraid of whatever was inside? He carefully laid the alien girl down on the floor of the structure, her body still weak but holding on. He examined the walls around him, noticing strange symbols etched into the stone. The symbols were unlike anything he had ever seen, alien, ancient, and full of mystery. It was clear that this place was not just a building, but something much more significant. Suddenly, the alien girl stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She looked around, confusion filling her face before her gaze locked onto Adam. "You found it," she whispered, her voice weak but filled with awe. "This is the place. The key to stopping them." Adam was puzzled. "What is this place? What is the key?" She slowly raised her hand and pointed to a large stone pedestal in the center of the room. "The power to stop them, to stop the crabs, is in there." Adam's heart skipped a beat. The pedestal. What could possibly be inside? And how could it stop the crabs? As he approached, the ground began to tremble, the walls vibrating with a low, rumbling sound. The crabs were no longer outside, they were coming, and they were closer than ever. Time was running out. The air inside the ancient structure grew thick with tension, as if the very walls were alive, sensing the imminent danger approaching. Adam's heart pounded in his chest as he turned toward the pedestal the alien girl had pointed to. The stone surface was smooth, yet etched with intricate designs that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. The closer he got, the more a strange energy seemed to vibrate through the air, making his skin tingle. But there was no time to marvel at the craftsmanship or wonder about the power within these walls. Outside, the crabs were growing closer. He could feel it in the very pit of his stomach, the creeping sense of dread that something was coming. The alien girl's words echoed in his mind. The key to stopping them is in there. But what exactly was she talking about? What was the key, and would it be enough to stop the crabs before they overran this place? Adam's mind raced. He couldn't afford to hesitate. The crabs were relentless, and whatever the girl had meant by the key could be their only hope. With a deep breath, he placed his hands on the stone pedestal. It felt cold, but not in a normal way. It was as if the stone had been waiting for this moment, for someone to finally activate its power. The moment his fingers made contact, the ground trembled beneath his feet, and the symbols on the pedestal began to glow. Faintly at first, then more brightly, until the entire room was bathed in an eerie, greenish light. The walls seemed to vibrate with an ancient hum, a sound so deep and resonant that it made Adam's bones rattle. A sharp hiss from behind him broke his concentration. Adam spun around just in time to see the first wave of crabs scuttling into the structure. They were faster, and their pincers clicked loudly, echoing through the room. Their beady eyes glowed a menacing red as they began to swarm, each crab more aggressive than the last. Without thinking, Adam grabbed the alien girl's arm, pulling her toward the pedestal. He couldn't wait any longer. Whatever was about to happen, whatever power lay in that pedestal, he needed it now. "Hold on," Adam muttered, trying to steady her. The girl's weight was a burden, but he couldn't leave her behind. Her energy was fading fast, and if he didn't act quickly, they would both be lost. Suddenly, the pedestal seemed to respond to their presence. The glow intensified, and a low rumbling sound filled the room, reverberating through the walls and floors. The crabs halted in their tracks, their movements becoming erratic as if they were sensing something they couldn't comprehend. Adam felt a strange pull, like an invisible force was drawing him closer to the center of the pedestal. The alien girl, barely conscious, reached out a weak hand, her fingers brushing against the stone. A flash of energy shot from the pedestal, spiraling around them in a wave of light. "Stay close to me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. This is the heart of it, the source, of our power." Before Adam could ask her to elaborate, the room exploded into chaos. The crabs, once still, now began to writhe and twist in pain, their bodies convulsing as if the light from the pedestal was burning them. The walls shook violently as the force from the pedestal grew stronger, and Adam could feel the heat radiating from the stone. His heart raced as the crabs scattered, some retreating, others collapsing to the ground. The air itself seemed to pulse with the energy of the pedestal, pushing back against the encroaching tide of crabs. The girl, despite her weakened state, spoke once more. "It's working, but only for a moment. You must finish it." Find the heart," Adam asked, his voice filled with confusion and desperation. "The heart of the crab's power," she explained, her voice growing fainter. "The source of their hive mind. It's not just them, there's something controlling them, something at the center of it all." Adam didn't fully understand, but there was no time to question her. As the pedestal's light continued to drive the crabs back, Adam spotted a doorway at the far end of the room, partially hidden by the shadows. It was narrow, but it was their only way forward. If he could reach it, if he could find whatever the girl had mentioned, they might just have a chance to stop this. With one last glance at the alien girl, Adam made a snap decision. He had to go. He couldn't wait any longer. He dragged her as gently as he could toward the doorway, her weight a dead weight in his arms. The crabs were beginning to regroup, some of them retreating into the shadows, while others seemed to be organizing, moving toward him with a disturbing sense of coordination. Their glowing eyes fixed on Adam, and he could hear the familiar clicking sound of their pincers, now more threatening than ever. The girl's breath was shallow, but she managed to whisper, "Go, you have to stop them, before they... finish." The cycle. Adam's confusion only deepened, but he couldn't afford to ask questions. He reached the door and pushed it open with a grunt. Beyond the threshold was another chamber, even larger than the first, with towering walls made of strange, glowing stone. In the center, illuminated by the pedestal's light, was what could only be described as a massive, organic structure, part hive, part machinery, as if the two had merged into one. The heart of the crab's power, the girl had said, but it wasn't just the crab's power that concerned Adam now. As he stepped into the chamber, he felt an overwhelming presence. It was as if something was watching him, something ancient, something that had been lying dormant for far too long. The walls seemed to pulse, and the very ground beneath his feet seemed to hum with energy. He glanced back at the girl, her eyes fluttering shut, and then forward at the pulsating structure. In the center of the chamber, he had no idea what he was about to face, but he knew one thing: if he didn't find the heart and destroy it, they would never leave this place alive. The stakes were higher than ever, and Adam knew he was about to face something far more dangerous than just crabs, something far older and far more powerful. The chamber was colder than Adam expected, the air thick with an unsettling energy. As he stepped deeper into the room, the light from the pedestal behind him barely reached the towering, organic structure at the center. It was a massive, pulsating mass of twisted metallic tendrils and fleshy growths, glowing faintly in shades of blue and green. The structure was alive, breathing, pulsing with a rhythm that echoed in the silence of the room. It was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Adam's heart raced. His instincts screamed at him to leave, to turn around and run, but he couldn't. Not now, not after everything. The girl's life was in his hands, and he had to find the heart, the source of the crab's power. He knew deep down that if he failed, it wouldn't just be the girl he would lose. The entire planet was at risk. He glanced at her one more time. She was still unconscious, her breath shallow, her body limp in his arms. Her words echoed in his mind, "Find the heart. You must stop the cycle." But what did that mean? What cycle? And where was the heart? His eyes scanned the chamber, trying to make sense of the shifting, pulsating mass in the center. Then a sudden noise from behind him snapped him out of his thoughts. The crabs. They were no longer outside. He could hear the scuttling sound of their legs against the floor, growing louder by the second. They were closing in on him. He turned quickly, trying to find the source of the noise. The crabs were emerging from the shadows, more of them now, their bodies gleaming in the dim light. But something was different this time. There was a strange order to their movements. They weren't attacking blindly. They were coordinated, like they were responding to some unseen command. Adam's pulse quickened. He didn't have much time. Without thinking, he began to move toward the structure. He had no plan, no idea what he was doing, but he had to do something. The crabs were closing in fast, their glowing eyes fixed on him, and their pincers clicking menacingly. The energy in the room was growing stronger, more oppressive, like it was alive and aware of his presence. That as he moved closer to the structure, he noticed something. There were faint, glowing symbols etched into the surface. They seemed to be part of the mass itself, almost as if the structure was made of the same material that powered the crabs. The symbols pulsed with a rhythm, almost like a heartbeat, and the closer Adam got, the more he could feel the power radiating from it. He reached out, his hand trembling, and touched one of the symbols. The moment his fingers made contact, the room seemed to explode with energy. A shockwave of light and sound blasted through the chamber, throwing him back against the wall. The alien girl let out a faint cry, but Adam couldn't focus on her now. The structure had responded. Something had been triggered. A deep, resonant voice, low and guttural, filled the room. It wasn't spoken, it was more like a thought. "Come on," that resonated in Adam's mind. "You are too late." The words sent a chill down Adam's spine. He looked around, his mind racing, but there was no one else in the room, no figure, no entity to explain the voice. It was coming from the structure itself. "The cycle cannot be stopped. The crabs are merely tools. The real power lies within. Adam's eyes widened. What do you mean? What's inside? He demanded, his voice filled with desperation. You have found the heart, but you do not understand. It is already too late to change the outcome. The voice grew colder. The crabs are the beginning. The end is inevitable. Adam's mind spun as the voice continued, explaining the truth behind the crabs, behind the girl's people. The crabs had been created as weapons, yes, but they were more than just mindless creatures. They were part of a greater design, a system that had been in motion for eons. The heart at the center of the room wasn't just a source of power. It was the core of a larger, more insidious plan, one that had been set in motion long before Adam had ever arrived. The girl, he realized, wasn't just a survivor. She was part of the original design, the last piece needed to complete the cycle. Her people had created the crabs, and now they were turning on her, using her as a key to unlock something far more dangerous, something that could spread beyond this planet. What do you want from me? Adam asked, his voice hoarse, his heart racing. The crabs were getting closer, their pincers clicking louder, their movements more deliberate. They were circling him now, almost as if they were waiting for something. You will see, the voice whispered, colder than ever. You will witness the end. Suddenly, the pedestal behind him flared with light. The ground shook violently, and the crabs froze, their movements halted by an unseen force. Adam turned just in time to see the pedestal pulse with energy, and the structure at the center of the room began to change. The massive tendrils and fleshy growths shifted, revealing something beneath, something glowing, something powerful. It was a sphere, floating just above the pedestal, glowing with a soft, pulsating light. It was the heart, the core of everything. Adam felt its pull, an irresistible force that seemed to call out to him, like it wanted him to reach out and touch it. But before he could act, the girl's voice broke through his thoughts. Destroy it, she shouted, her words ragged and desperate. Destroy the heart, or the crabs will destroy everything. Adam's hand hovered over the glowing sphere. He could feel the weight of the decision, the gravity of what was at stake. The fate of the planet and, perhaps much more, hung in the balance. But was it truly as simple as destroying the heart? Was that all it would take to stop the crabs? Or had he already fallen into the trap set for him? The crabs began to move again, their eyes glowing with a new intensity. Adam knew the answer. Now, the time for hesitation was over. He had to make his move. With a final, decisive breath, Adam reached out toward the heart. The moment Adam's fingers brushed against the heart, the world around him seemed to shift. The air grew thicker, more oppressive, as if the very atmosphere was tightening around him, ready to crush him. His mind reeled as he felt an overwhelming surge of energy course through his body, filling him with an unnatural heat. The pedestal beneath him hummed with power, the soft pulse of the glowing sphere now resonating in his chest. It felt as if the heart itself was alive, breathing, and somehow aware of him. For a fleeting moment, Adam was certain he had made a mistake. The voice, low, deep, and guttural, spoke in his mind again, and this time, it wasn't a whisper. It was clear, unmistakable. You cannot destroy it. You cannot escape what is already in motion. His heart pounded in his chest, his breath ragged as the ground trembled beneath him. The crabs, once more scattered in confusion, began to rally, their eyes glowing more intensely now. Adam could feel their presence as if they were surrounding him, closing in. The heart's pulse continued, faster now, as if it was accelerating the more he resisted its pull. The alien girl stirred weakly in his arms, her voice faint but clear enough for him to hear. It's too late to destroy the heart. It's not the crabs that are the true enemy. Her words were almost inaudible, barely a whisper against the growing intensity of the energy in the room. The heart controls everything. It's the source of all life on this planet, but it's also the source of its destruction. Adam's mind scrambled for answers, but nothing seemed to make sense. If the heart wasn't the problem, what was? The crabs, the girls, people, everything seemed to be connected to this dark energy, this force that was growing stronger by the second. But how could something so powerful be stopped? Before Adam could ask more, the girl's eyes opened, the faintest glimmer of awareness returning. She reached up, weakly grasping his arm, her fingers cold but insistent. You must listen, she gasped. The heart doesn't just control the crabs. It controls everything, the land, the creatures, the skies. Your planet doesn't have anything like this, but we created it. My people did. The crabs were only the beginning of the plan, but they They weren't supposed to go this far. The heart was meant to reset, to restore balance, not to destroy. Adam's breath caught in his throat as her words settled into his mind. reset, restore, balance. How could this glowing sphere possibly restore balance when everything it touched seemed to crumble? He had seen firsthand how destructive the crabs were, and how much pain the girl had suffered. Nothing about this made sense. The alien girl continued, her voice growing weaker with each word. The crabs are part of an ancient cycle, one that repeats itself again and again. Each time they come back, they grow stronger. But the heart was meant to be my people thought they could control it, use it to reshape the world, to fix everything. But it's out of control now. It wants destruction. It wants ... the end. The reality of the situation hit Adam with full force. This wasn't just about crabs. It wasn't just about saving the girl or even stopping a few rogue creatures. This was about a cycle of destruction that had spanned centuries, one that threatened to destroy everything. He was standing on the brink of something much bigger than he could possibly comprehend. The crabs were no longer just mindless creatures driven by hunger. They were pawns in a much larger game, part of a force beyond Adam's understanding, and the heart was the key. But how could he fight something that was already ingrained in the very fabric of the planet? There's a way to stop it, the girl whispered, her strength fading, but you must destroy the source ... inside the heart. Adam's gaze shifted to the glowing sphere. There it was, the heart. It pulsed with an energy that felt so powerful it was almost suffocating. If the girl was right, and this was the source of everything, the crabs, the destruction, the cycle, it had to be destroyed. But how? The voice in his mind spoke again, and this time, it wasn't just a whisper. It was a command. You cannot stop the heart. You cannot stop the cycle. The crabs are the beginning. The heart is the end. It was like a warning, but Adam knew he couldn't back down. He had come too far. He wasn't going to let the crabs, or whatever else this heart was controlling, take over everything. Taking a deep breath, Adam steadied himself. He had no choice but to trust the girl's words. If he didn't destroy the heart now, the cycle would continue forever. The crabs would keep coming back, stronger, more relentless, until nothing was left. With every ounce of willpower, Adam forced himself to step forward. His hand was shaking as he reached for the heart, feeling the heat radiating from it. But just before his fingers made contact, the entire room seemed to shift, as if the heart itself was aware of his intentions. The symbols on the pedestal flared brightly, and the ground beneath Adam's feet cracked open, a deep chasm spreading out before him. The crabs began to move again, faster now, their pincers snapping and clicking in unison. It was as though they were closing in, driven by an unseen force. Adam hesitated. There was something in the air now, an oppressive, suffocating energy that made it hard to breathe. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He had no idea what would happen when he touched the heart. But if the girl's warnings were true, he had no other choice. Do it, the girl cried out, her voice strained. You must destroy it, or everything will be lost. With one final breath, Adam reached forward and pressed his hand to the glowing sphere. The moment he made contact, a burst of energy exploded from the heart, sending him flying back across the room. His head hit the stone floor hard, and for a moment, everything went black. When Adam's vision cleared, he could hear nothing but the deafening silence. The crabs had stopped moving. The room was eerily still, as though the heart had gone quiet, its power subdued. But was it enough? Had he succeeded? Or had he just unleashed something even worse? The girl was no longer in his arms. She had vanished, her form dissipating into the air like a fading dream. The last remnants of her voice echoed in his mind. It's not over, the cycle ... double quotes. Adam struggled to his feet, dazed and disoriented. He had no idea what had just happened, but he knew one thing for certain: the fight wasn't over. The silence in the chamber was deafening. Adam's heart pounded in his chest as he struggled to regain his bearings. The world around him had shifted in ways he couldn't fully comprehend, and the girl, her warmth, her essence was gone. Her last words echoed in his mind like a haunting refrain. It's not over ... the cycle ... He pushed himself to his feet, his limbs heavy, as if the weight of the entire room had settled onto him. His body ached from the blast of energy, and his head throbbed from the sudden impact. As his vision cleared, the first thing he saw was the heart. The glowing sphere, now dim and flickering, sat in the center of the pedestal like a dying ember. The room had grown colder, and the oppressive weight of the energy that had once filled it was now gone, replaced by a tense stillness. But that stillness didn't sit right with him. It felt wrong. The crabs, the creatures that had been so relentless, were nowhere to be seen. The ground beneath Adam's feet was cracked, the remnants of the explosion leaving deep fissures in the stone. The walls, once full of energy and life, now seemed lifeless, as if the pulse that had sustained them had been severed. Yet Adam knew in his gut that it wasn't over. The girl's words haunted him. The cycle, the crabs, the heart. Something still lingered in the air, something darker, more insidious than he could have imagined. The silence stretched on, suffocating him. He needed answers, and fast. He stepped forward, moving cautiously toward the pedestal. His hand, still trembling from the shockwave, reached out toward the dimming heart. He had no idea what he was about to do, but he couldn't just leave it here. The heart, whatever it was still connected to this planet, to the crabs, to the destruction that had been set in motion. As his fingers brushed against the cold surface of the heart, something unexpected happened. The air around him shifted once more. A low rumbling sound reverberated through the chamber, and the stone beneath him groaned in response, as if the very foundation of the place was awakening. The heart flickered again, and this time, a faint, distorted voice filled his mind. Not unlike the one he had heard before, but this time, it was clearer, more desperate. "You cannot destroy me. I am the beginning. I am the end." The voice was not just speaking, it was alive, growing more forceful with every word. A dark, deep presence that filled every corner of the room. It was as if the heart itself was trying to reach out, to pull Adam into its depths. He stepped back, his breath catching in his throat. The heart wasn't just a source of power. It was a sentient being, a force that had existed long before he had arrived on this planet, long before the crabs had been created. It was older than anything Adam could possibly fathom, and it was far more dangerous than he could have ever guessed. The cycle is mine to control. The voice continued, each word making Adam's blood run cold. "I have been here longer than your kind, longer than any species could imagine. And now, you have awakened me." Adam's mind raced. He had thought that destroying the heart would be the key to ending the cycle, to stopping the crabs and whatever destructive force they represented. But now he realized that the heart was the cycle. It was the source of everything. And destroying it hadn't stopped anything, it had only unleashed its true power. "You are a part of the cycle now, just like the crabs," the voice echoed. "You will never escape, none of you will." Adam's heart raced as the chamber around him began to shift. The walls seemed to warp, the air thickening once again with that same oppressive energy. The heart's glow grew brighter, its pulse faster, almost frantic. And then, without warning, the ground beneath Adam's feet began to tremble. It was the same tremor he had felt earlier, but this time it was different. This time it was accompanied by a low, rumbling growl, one that seemed to shake the very core of the structure. From the darkness, they came, the crabs, dozens of them, no longer just mindless creatures, but something more, a coordinated force, moving with purpose. Their glowing eyes fixed on Adam, their pincers snapping, but this time, they weren't alone. The ground beneath them seemed to give way, as though the planet itself was responding to the heart's power. Adam stumbled backward, panic rising in his chest. He wasn't ready for this. He wasn't prepared to face whatever the heart had become. The crabs moved faster now, their bodies twisting and shifting, growing in size, almost as if they were evolving in real time. The sound of their pincers clicking was deafening, a relentless march toward him. But they weren't just coming for him, they were coming for something else. And then the truth hit Adam like a punch to the gut. The crabs weren't the true enemy. They were the vessels, the servants. The heart was the true enemy. The heart had used the crabs to spread its influence, to control the planet, to control everything. But now, the heart was ready for more. The crabs were no longer just the beginning. They were the heralds of something much worse. The heart wasn't just a source of power, it was a living entity, a parasitic force that fed on everything in its path. The crabs were its agents, its tools to manipulate the planet's inhabitants and forces, and now, Adam had awakened it. He had given it the strength it needed to fully emerge from the depths of the planet. The crabs continued to advance, their movements becoming more aggressive, as if they were preparing for something. Adam could feel their presence growing stronger, their energy feeding off the power of the heart. The room seemed to close in around him, and he knew that if he didn't act fast, he would be consumed by the very force he had awakened. "There is no escape," the voice in his mind boomed, louder now, shaking the walls. "You are mine now, all of you. And the cycle will continue." The world around Adam began to blur. The walls, the crabs, the heart, everything became a swirling mass of light and darkness. The weight of the situation pressed down on him, but there was no time to think, no time to question what was happening. Adam's instincts took over. With one last desperate move, he bolted toward the center of the room, towards the heart. It was the only way. He had to stop it. He had to end this, No matter the cost, the crabs were closing in, and the heart was pulsing with energy. It was now or never. The weight of the moment pressed down on Adam, and for the first time since his arrival on this alien planet, he felt truly alone. The crabs, once mindless and chaotic, now moved with a purpose, their pincers snapping in unison, their glowing eyes fixed on him like an army ready to strike. The room around him seemed to warp, the walls shifting and groaning under the immense pressure of the heart's power. It was as if the very planet itself was alive, watching, waiting. Adam could feel the pulse of the heart reverberating in his bones, a constant, rhythmic throb that matched the speed of his racing heart. The crabs were drawing closer, their movements coordinated and precise. They were no longer the scattered, disorganized creatures they had been. They were a part of something much larger, a force greater than anything Adam had ever imagined. Air was thick with tension, heavy with the weight of decisions made and consequences yet to come. Adam knew he couldn't turn back. The girl's words echoed in his mind. The cycle will continue unless you destroy the heart. But how could he destroy something that was so deeply embedded in the fabric of the planet? How could he possibly defeat a force that had existed for centuries, perhaps longer, and had manipulated everything in its path? The heart was no longer just a source of power. It was the core of the planet's very existence. It had given rise to the crabs, controlled the land, and now it was poised to consume everything. The cycle was set to repeat, an endless loop of destruction and rebirth, and Adam had unwittingly stepped into the middle of it. There was no escaping it now. He looked around the chamber, his eyes searching for something, anything that could help. The pedestal, now dim and flickering, still emitted a faint pulsating glow. The heart's energy was overwhelming, flooding the room with a sense of dread. The crabs were getting closer, their eerie, unblinking eyes never leaving him. They were circling, as if they were waiting for something, anticipating his next move. Adam had to act fast. He couldn't let the heart gain more strength, or it would be the end of everything. His mind raced, his thoughts scattered. What could he do? The crabs were no longer just an obstacle. They were part of the heart's will, a manifestation of its power. Destroying them would not stop the heart. It would only fuel its growth. He had to go straight to the source. He had to find a way to destroy the heart itself. His eyes landed on the pedestal again, the symbols etched into its surface, glowing faintly, almost as if they were calling to him. There had to be something there, something he was missing. He stepped forward, cautiously, his every movement calculated, as if the very air around him was ready to explode. As he approached the pedestal, the pulse of the heart grew stronger, more insistent. The air crackled with energy, and the room seemed to close in on him. He reached out, his hand trembling as he touched one of the symbols on the pedestal. For a moment, nothing happened. But then, a sharp pain shot through his arm, and he gasped, stumbling back. The room around him seemed to spin, the walls warping and twisting as if they were alive. The pain intensified, and he gritted his teeth, trying to fight it off. The symbols on the pedestal glowed brighter, and the heart pulsed with an unnatural rhythm, as if it were responding to his touch. Suddenly, a voice deep and ancient code in his mind, drowning out everything else. You cannot escape. You are part of the cycle. You always have been. The voice was familiar, yet alien, like a memory he couldn't quite place. It was the heart speaking to him. It wasn't just a force of power. It was alive, aware, and it had been waiting for him, waiting for someone to awaken it, to trigger the final stage of the cycle. You are the key. The voice continued, its tone cold and unyielding. You will be the one to complete the cycle. You will be the one to bring about the end. Adam's mind spun. This was it. He had been used. He had walked right into the heart's trap. But it wasn't over yet. He couldn't let it end like this. He couldn't let the heart win. He had to fight back. Somehow he looked down at the pedestal, his hand still pressed against the glowing symbols. The pain had subsided, replaced by a strange calmness. It was as if the heart was allowing him to make one final choice. He didn't know what would happen if he activated it again, but he had no choice. He had to try. With a final, desperate push, Adam pressed harder against the symbols. The room seemed to shake violently, and a blinding light erupted from the pedestal, engulfing everything in its path. The crabs, still circling, hissed and recoiled, their bodies writhing in the light. The ground beneath Adam's feet cracked open, and he stumbled, barely keeping his balance as the room seemed to collapse around him. The heart's pulse quickened, the energy building to an unbearable crescendo. Adam felt a surge of power course through him, but this time, it was different. It wasn't just the heart's energy, it was something else, something within him. The the heart, the crabs, they were all connected, and Adam was part of it. He had the power to stop it, but at what cost? The light from the pedestal intensified, and Adam knew this was his final moment. He had to make the choice: destroy the heart and end the cycle, or let it continue and watch as the world around him collapsed into chaos. With every ounce of strength he had left, Adam reached out and, in one final act of defiance, he pulled the heart from its pedestal. The moment it left its resting place, the room fell silent. The crabs froze, their eyes dimming, their movements stopping. The energy in the room dissipated, leaving only the faintest trace of the heart's power behind. Adam dropped to his knees, exhausted, his body trembling. The heart, now lifeless in his hands, flickered one last time before fading completely. The room fell into darkness, that it was over. But Adam knew, deep down, that the cycle had been broken. The crabs, the heart, the destruction, they were no more. The planet would heal. And for the first time since arriving, Adam felt a flicker of hope. He had stopped it. He had stopped the cycle, but at what cost?